A thread by Will Siskey. Thoughts on voting glitches and how I'd rig an election. I hear many saying these glitches don't matter and handfuls of votes won't change the outcome of an election. While I understand the argument, I disagree. Let me explain. If I were to rig an election, I wouldn't just pump new votes in. While that would be beneficial, it wouldn't be my first strategy. Hold this thought. I'd utilize glitches first. Why? Say me and you are playing a game and are tied at 4-4. A glitch occurs, giving me 2 of your points. That puts the score at 6-2, making a 4-point swing. That is much more powerful than just pumping more points in for me. Hold this. Now, take this to an election. You can't just switch too much, otherwise it'd be obvious. Alabama likely isn't going blue, so probably shit out of luck there. Focus on battleground states, obviously. But how do you switch enough votes to influence outcomes without getting caught? Disperse small amounts of glitches slash switches across multiple counties, increased percentage in blue counties and smaller percentage in red rural counties. The key here is the small percentage in red rural counties. As my mentor says, a big percentage of a little is a little, but a little percentage of a lot is a lot. I focus on these rural areas too because I don't expect them to get much attention. They'll get a clear red win, but it'll make the margin more manageable while boosting my own votes. These rural counties are also more likely to gloss over them, often less educated and honest people that probably wouldn't expect it. By spreading it out across all these counties, I create a larger swing in my favor, all while making the margin smaller and boosting my numbers. Not only that I hedge my risk of getting caught by diversifying it across the counties, any instance seems rather small, out of place, and well, meaningless, because my opponent still won that county, and what's a couple of thousand votes in an election? Most counties are as predicted, nothing seemingly out of the ordinary. What dummy steals only 2,000 votes? Well, I would. Again, here's why. It doesn't take mass collab to program a machine. And say I take an average of 2,000 votes per county, some may be more, some may be less. And in a state like Arizona, with 15 counties, that's 30,000 votes, a 60,000 vote swing, and enough in a razor thin race to push me over the edge. Arizona is at a 12K margin. Now, I wouldn't stop there. Maybe that's not enough of a guarantee. I'd further hedge with ballots cast from previous aliases, women's maiden names, transgenders, women's previous marriage last names, dead people, all that wouldn't look back on their past. Seems like random instances, but enough votes if I got close, that would help. But what if I was just short of the vote or started sensing I miscalculated the percentage in certain swing states? You could have a safety net to halt the machines from working temporarily to adjust the percentage. But that's risky for me because you have to take a higher percentage of the incoming vote. I would utilize mailed in ballots in allied counties as my safety net to boost the end outcome if absolutely needed, knowing it's plausible and understandable, but to me is most risky. Lastly, the key to this election is razor thin margins. Makes things interesting. Betting on the fact that all these individually won't bring much merit in court. Now, considering reports of vote switching, live TV showing it, plus the voting system being tied to the DNC and the totem reported failing certification, this doesn't seem too out there. To further clarify the strategy behind the lower percentage in rural counties, red votes would be higher, meaning I'd get more votes per percentage point than I would at the same percentage in a blue county. If you haven't checked out this thread on how I'd rig an election, Another clarification: the goal in this strategy is to keep every source of votes by themselves at a seemingly low and insignificant amount, so they're easily dismissed if discovered. Here's an interesting thread for something similar to what I mentioned above. Link in the thread, November 10th, Michael Burry, MD. What if voting software algorithms used a weighted race feature to transfer votes from Trump to Biden as a linear function of percent Republicans in a precinct? This is the allegation of Dr. Shiva Ayadurai. Also alleged code does not glitch. All right, moving on. Will continues. What further makes me believe something along the lines of my red rural county percentage theory as plausible is that Trump outperformed in blue counties, yet didn't really lose ground in red counties. So, how did he lose? One possible explanation is greater voter turnout, including mail in, but that means within the greater turnout, Biden had to win those votes with a substantial margin or a percentage to overcome. I do not see that as probable because both sides would have had increased votes realistically. And this is my non scientific hunch: Biden's campaign lacked enthusiasm, rally turnout, and momentum. But most of all, Trump actually performed quite well, as previously noted. Compare this with how the Senate and House races are going. Voters didn't seem to respond to their platform. So, all this together paints an interesting picture that I think is just as plausible. It makes me think that something is going on, and not only that, but that Trump actually won, and by a lot.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.